everyone, welcome back to the show, the wrestling show. We're keeping it real, goes right. Welcome back to Real Take Wrestle Talk live here on YouTube. I am your host, Omar Q, and things are a little different today. Trevor the barman, Sutan, cannot make it today. However, we will tread on without him in real take fashion. It's just me holding down the fort, just like on every other show on this network, it seems like. But it's okay, because he will be back for our AEW All Out review this Friday night, 7:30 p.m., right here on the channel. AEW All Out live preview. We're going to be breaking down each matchup, breaking down each segment, everything, and giving our predictions about what might happen. We did get some news, though, that we're going to talk about tonight about All Out and what is going to happen, or at least reportedly will happen, and that is the debut of the American Dragon, Daniel Bryan, in All Elite Wrestling. So we'll discuss that. We're also going to be talking about Jim Ross's future with AEW. That was in the conversation this week. Also, we're going to be talking about news from WWE, Charlotte Flair and Nia Jax doing a little shooting. We'll talk about that and much more. All live, all here, unless you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Either way, we're going to be talking about it. Before we get to any of that, if you haven't already, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. We got a big week of Real Take Sports this week. Real Take Wrestle Talk tonight. Tomorrow night, Wednesday at 7 p.m., we have Real Take Sports, the NFL 2021 preview edition. So we're going to be talking about the entire 2021 season, our predictions for each division, each conference, our Super Bowl predictions, and going to be breaking down some of the key storylines leading into the 2021 NFL season, which is fast approaching, just about a week away. Also, we'll talk about the big news from sports as well. Mostly it's NFL news. Trent Dilfer's big blow up in high school football. That Bishop whatever school thing. We'll talk about that too. All live, all here tomorrow night on Real Take Sports Talk number 53, by the way. Also, Friday night, like I said, Real Take Wrestle Talks AEW All Out 2021 live preview edition. So, like I said, a lot to break down, a lot to talk about this week, and let's just get right into it, get right into what we were talking about, and let's talk about, I'm sorry, I was distracted for a second, but it's okay, I'm still here. But let's talk about what we were going to do, and that is discussing wrestling. So, in the news this week, we saw a new era of NXT arrive, and a new era of NXT, it seems like, is here. So let's talk about it a little further. We've entered a new era in NXT as WWE unveiled a new logo for the brand. It was also reported last week by the Wrestling Observer newsletter that WWE would no longer be scouting independent talent, and the company has reverted to signing future wrestlers based off of looks rather than their ability to actually wrestle inside the square circle. With this in mind, WWE will be looking to hire more athletic and more bigger and stronger talents rather than the smaller indie wrestlers that have made the brand so famous over the past few years. There's also been push internally for WWE to sign larger athletes without a wrestling background, kind of get a raw talent, and really mold them into what they want a sports entertainer to be. So this can be taken in a few ways. This is obviously WWE kind of doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down, whatever you want to say, on this idea that they are not a wrestling company. They are a sports entertainment company. And that is what this is posturing. That is what this is showing. Now, not only is WWE doing this, but on top of that, they've said that they're not going to be scouting indie talent. So overall question here, one of the big overall looming questions is this decision by WWE correct? And if you look at it on the merits of the argument that we should no longer look at indie talent for NXT, we should no longer look at people with a wrestling background to develop into wrestling stars, then obviously this decision makes no sense and it is wrong. However, if you look at it from the perspective of WWE, and if you look at it from the perspective of what WWE believes they are, which is a sports entertainment company, then you have to agree that this is the correct move, because it all depends on your philosophy. For sports entertainment purposes, quote unquote, this is great because WWE can mold people into what they want their company to be, and what they want the future of their company to be, and what they want these talents to be. No more flips, as it was noted earlier in the week. But honestly, it depends on your philosophy. Now, obviously, the other question is, will this work? And it depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to have, people who only know WWE and only know the WWE system and only know the WWE way of working and performing in a wrestling ring, then yeah, it'll probably work. If your goal is to make money and make stars and make people who are going to get over with the crowd and make people who are going to get people to spend money, this is the completely wrong direction to go in. This is a completely wrong direction to go in, because what you are doing is this is such a drastic shift that WWE is trying to do with NXT specifically. It is such a drastic shift. What they are trying to do here is they're trying to take a show on NXT, which airs on Tuesday nights, gets around 700,000 people to watch every week, and they are taking that show, and the audience is primarily hardcore wrestling fans and hardcore WWE fans who want a more wrestling feel for a show, and that's what it has been presented as. That's what Triple H wants to present it as. It has a different feel than WWE Raw or WWE SmackDown or all of these other shows. It is different. And one thing that we have seen is that when you deviate from that, especially, we've seen it in the history of WWE. Look at what Raw has turned into now. Look at what happened during the Ruthless Aggression era early on. When WWE shifts away and does a drastic shift like that, it not only will it alienate those people who watch it, when they shift from a wrestling-oriented show to a developmental show that's not showcasing the best wrestling or the best wrestlers in developmental, it's showcasing people who they want to mold, who might not be as crisp as people like Kyle O'Reilly or Roderick Strong or the like, is going to be a worse show for those fans. And the question is, are you going to be able to replace those hardcore wrestling fans who watch NXT and like the wrestling aspect of it with people who are interested in seeing a developmental product with big people who don't know anything about wrestling and who might have potential? Maybe. If that's what you're telling me, if you think that that's possible, I mean, good luck to you. I don't see it happening. There's just not an audience out there for that. There's not an audience out there for that, especially for a developmental brand like NXT. There was the fact that they found a hardcore audience within their own audience to watch NXT was already an accomplishment that I believe they should have doubled down on. They should have doubled down on it. If I were WWE, instead of converting NXT into a completely different show, the more logical solution to all of this would have been, okay, NXT can be our wrestling show where we showcase wrestling, where we showcase all this stuff, and it's on USA Network. It does decent ratings for what it is, and we're fine with it. Okay, That's already a thing. It's popular. It's actually making money, and the product is hot, and it gets people talking, and it creates a buzz. That's good for WWE. Now, on the flip side, instead, what you could have done, you could have kept that, and then all you had to do was be like, all right, cool. Now we're going to have a completely developmental product that is separate from NXT, that where we showcase people on, fucking Saturday morning. Like they had enough time for Saturday Morning Slam. They'll have enough time for this whatever developmental show that I'm pitching right now. You could have done that. Could have had all the crazy colors like this logo. Could have been something wacky, crazy, big, muscly monster men, big beefy men, like Vince likes it, pal. And it would have, and I think it would have been better because it would have, it wouldn't have taken away from NXT, and you wouldn't be potentially losing those fans. And two, the bigger thing is, you wouldn't be taking a brand in NXT that is hot, that is good, that has a lot of potential, and not only potential, but clout among wrestling fans and credibility amongst wrestling fans, and just shooting it in the head. Like you wouldn't be doing that. You wouldn't be taking it out back like Old Yeller, like apparently these plans are. And thirdly, lastly, another thing is, these wrestlers that are coming up and are going to be competing on this developmental brand wouldn't have to follow the era of NXT previous. There wouldn't be that added pressure of this is NXT still, So for me, this makes no sense. The only reason they're doing this, obviously, to me, is Vince McMahon saw the NXT AEW war as a failure because they lost. And that's just the truth. AEW whooped them. They got their asses handed to them. And because of that loss, Vince's instinct kicked in and said, we are going to drastically change everything about this show. And we are going to do it my way. And we're going to do it with what I think what I think sports entertainment should be. That's what I think is happening. And it's a shame, because we talked about it last week. NXT for a very long time has been the hottest brand in sports entertainment, pal, in wrestling. It was actually for a while. It was in 2015, 2016. Their shows, in my opinion, were better than Ring of Honor's. Their shows were amazing, and it's crazy. It's just crazy that they would allow for something that was once so hot that, honestly, it's still doing good. They're still getting hundreds of thousands of people to tune in every single week to watch this thing on a Tuesday night. Spend 2 hours on a Tuesday night to watch this brand, to spend money, to care about this product. A lot of people only watch NXT. That's the only WWE they watch. There's a large amount of wrestling fans who only watch NXT. And with these changes, you are completely changing up what NXT is, and you are also going to be losing those fans. That's what I think is just the truth. And that's a real take. The other question coming out of this is, what does this mean for the likes of the indie wrestlers? What does this mean for the indie wrestlers that are in NXT currently? What does it mean for people like Kyle O'Reilly? What does it mean for people like Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano? The latter of two have carried NXT in this previous era and created it into what it is today. Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, in my opinion, had one of the best feuds in wrestling history. So what does it mean for people like them? Where do they fit in this new NXT that's going to be bigger and more athletic and less emphasis on wrestling, more emphasis on creating stars, pal? Where are they going to fit in? The answer to that, in my opinion, is they're not. I don't think they are. I'm not saying it's going to be like tomorrow they're just going to change everything and it's going to be new NXT, new people, no one knows. They're going to have some sort of a transition. Is it going to be good? Probably not. Is it going to be be, amazing? Probably not. Is it going to be well done? Probably not. Is it going to be watchable? We'll see. But I think there's going to be a transition, but you're going to see people like Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano, and Kyle O'Reilly eventually make their way up to the main roster. Maybe make their way up to NXT UK if that's still going to be a thing. Maybe they'll do something with Evolve or one of those other brands, or make a partnership with another indie company. There's a few different ways to go there, but one thing I can guarantee you is if this is the direction, if this is truly the direction that NXT is going in, and look, when Vince is on something, when Vince is about the changing direction, he is very gung-ho about it, at least in the beginning. So we'll see how long it lasts, but once they go in this direction, it's going to be very difficult for them to pull back. This is not something like the wild card rule for the WWE draft, where you can just redraft and people will keep watching. If they go in this direction and they expect people to still be hanging around afterwards, they got another thing coming, because it's just not going to happen. It is not going to happen. And it's sad. If this is true, it is truly sad, because NXT might have legitimately been the best wrestling show in WWE. Right? Like in 2021, in 2020, in 2019, 2017, 2018, definitely in 2016, 15. But, we'll see what happens with that. I try to be optimistic, especially when it's about things I like. And I still like NXT. The stuff they did with Cameron Grimes, LA Knight, I talked about Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. I believe still that is one of the best feuds to ever happen in the middle of a wrestling ring. And if all of that is going to be flushed away, pissed away, it's going to be really, really sad for pro wrestling. Trevor, the fuck? This guy finally deciding to show up for work. Says in the chat, there's definitely some truth to that. Like, I remember NXT being a real competition of Ring of Honor, and it's sad that the era is changing. He also goes on to say that I am interested to see the new recruits they have announced, and I can't wait to see them in action. I can wait. Fuck that. Give me Ciampa versus O'Reilly for the NXT title. Give me Joe versus Gargano for the NXT title. Do a 6-month build with that. No, I am not ready to see it. Cap, my friend. All cap. Jesus, this guy. To think I used to have him on the show. Well, guess you're fired, Trevor. You're fired. It's my heel turn. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, Trevor. You're not fired yet. Nah. Let's move on, though. Keep this train going. Let's keep it going and move on to some news that we heard about. Something we saw before our very eyes last night on Monday Night Raw, and this was very, very interesting. Monday Night Raw, we were treated to a bizarre match within an already weird Raw show. The match between Nia Jax and Charlotte Flair turned heated after Jax seemed to drop Flair on her head. Jax then held up Flair against the ropes as she followed up with some hard slaps, and it then looked like Flair kind of sandbagged Jax on a Samoan drop. Flair then awkwardly ran the ropes, and then Jax tried a Samoan drop again, but Flair stopped her before they did an awkward Scorpion death drop spot. They then began open hand slapping each other and not cooperating on each other's moves. It just seemed very, very shooty. It seemed very, very messy, and many fans are calling this a shoot as the two look legitimately frustrated with each other in the ring, and the sloppiness of these spots kind of also speaks to that and also could be attributed to this. So a lot of people are asking, is this a shoot? Were these two legitimately mad at each other? And the answer is maybe. And that's just the truth. But maybe they were. And there is indication, if you go back and watch the match, there is indication that after the spot was messed up, there was some frustration on both of their faces. And, maybe it was a situation where Nia Jax thought that she was sandbagged by Charlotte. And if that's the case, in wrestling, if you get sandbagged, you don't take it down. Like, you don't go down like that. So maybe this was a situation. where that kind of set her off. Maybe that was a situation where that set Charlotte Flair off. We don't know exactly, but I will say this: when they were slapping each other, they were slapping each other. They were hitting each other. And look, and the way that Charlotte was kind of sandbagging, quote unquote, Nia Jax, kind of, it looked sloppy enough where it wasn't just a botch. It looked sloppy enough where it was like, I am trying not to do this damn move for you. So that could be a situation that transpired. And if that is the case, if that is truly, and we're back, if that is truly the case, I'm so mad. I can't believe my internet just gave out. Anyway, if that is truly the case, then I believe Charlotte Flair and Nia Jax were probably pissed at each other, and frustrations can get the better of us sometimes. That happens, and no matter where you are, sometimes in the ring, it just manifests like that. The other thing I want to make a note of, I don't think this is like shooting, like, you know, like, oh, these two just started to actually like fight each other and they hate each other. No, Charlotte Flair and Nia Jax, if you check out their social medias, they're pretty close. They're like very good friends on social media. They hang out. They're very friendly. So I don't think this is a situation where, oh my God, Charlotte Flair and Nia Jax hate each other in a backstage heat. I don't think this is a situation like that. We'll see where it goes from here. I doubt it. These are two big time professionals, two of the biggest wrestlers in WWE today. I doubt that that's the case. I think it's nothing that these two can't move on from, and that's considering there is something here, and if there's not, then we got worked. But ultimately, one thing we need to ask ourselves was this good? And I have to say yes, because I have not seen Charlotte Flair and Nia Jax work this kind of style before, at least to this level. They were working a strong style when this alleged shoot happened, and it was entertaining to watch. It got people talking. It got people interested, and goddamn, do people need to be interested in Monday Night Raw, at least in WWE's case. They really need people to be interested in Monday Night Raw, and this was by far the most interesting thing that happened on that entire show. This was the most interesting thing that happened on the entire show. The whole 3-hour edition of Monday Night Raw, by the way. So if you're going to ask me if this is a thumbs up, thumbs down, this is a thumbs up because it got people talking. It looked tough. It was entertaining. And now you could even make a storyline out of this. You could do something with this. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Vince, take a hint. And again, I want to very, very clearly reiterate, I don't believe that there is any legitimate heat between these two. These are two professionals, people. These are two of the most professional people and the athletes in WWE. So let's take it back. I get being sensational. I get speculation. It's our job. We're wrestling fans. We do it. But let's just dial it back just a pinch. It's not always... You know, and not everyone always hates everybody. Sometimes things can just happen in the ring, and that's wrestling. That is professional wrestling for you. It happens like that, and it be like that. It also be like that when you don't hit that like button. I'll tell you that. If you want real heat, I'll give you heat. I'll give you some real heat. If you don't hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Anyway, I wish I had Trevor on here. Just kill airtime while I take care of other things. That's what I miss about having him on here. Anyway, we'll see. Maybe I need a new co-host. Maybe SmackDown needs a new champion. There's probably bigger likelihood of neither of those happening. But maybe SmackDown needs a new champion. Maybe they will get one in Finn Balor. So Finn Balor will be taking on Roman Reigns for the WWE Universal Championship on Friday Night SmackDown this week. The match is going to be not a rematch, but another match in between these two. And these two have had a match back in 2016 in a qualifying match for the Universal title match that crowned the inaugural Universal Champion. Finn Balor ended up winning that very cleanly. he ended up becoming the first Universal Champion. These two were supposed to have a match back at SummerSlam, but instead we had that weird thing where John Cena signed the contract and he became the number one contender, and then it was very confusing, and Finn just kind of looked weak because he let John have it, and it kind of made him look like a dummy. But nevertheless, these two will clash Friday Night SmackDown for the Universal title. And a lot of people are asking, is there a chance that Finn Balor wins the Universal title on SmackDown this week? And I have a very clear answer for you, and that answer is absolutely not. There is no way, and I take no pride in saying this, there is no way, however, Finn Balor wins the Universal title on SmackDown, and that is just because WWE are not going to take the belt off of Roman Reigns, at least not at this time. And I can see possibly in the future this happening, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But I think this is not a big enough build for that. There's not enough storyline reasons for that. I just don't see it happening. And I kind of take it more as the way that this has been built up. It's been built up all wrong if that's the case, and that's why it's not happening. But so kind of going back to that other question, though, is this the best way of going about this? Should Roman versus Balor probably be a bigger match than just, a throwaway main event on Friday Night SmackDown that's probably going to end in a schmoz, end in some sort of weird finish, and then lead to a match between these two at Extreme Rules where no one really expects Roman to lose? Like, I mean, it is... Like, I just gave you the whole spoiler alert right there. It's not the best way of going about this match because I think that these two have they have enough of a history where you can, and especially involving the Universal title, where you can go back to that and you can reference that, and that can just be the point of the entire feud. That can be the point of the entire feud. But I don't trust WWE to actually implement that and execute that as well, so we're left with this. This is probably going to be an amazing match. I would much rather have seen Finn Balor have to claw and fight his way for a Universal title match with Roman Reigns, and then having him be the guy who ends up beating Roman Reigns, kind of going full circle, because Finn Balor, again, was the first Universal Champion. They put a rocket ship on this guy and flew him to the moon at SummerSlam 2016, and then he hurt his arm in the middle of the match, and he still finished the match, and it was a great match, and he became the first ever Universal Champion. And he beat Roman Reigns on the way to that. You could have so many great promos where Finn's like, you never beat me for that title. You never beat me for that title. I did beat you. You can reference that. And then Roman can say, well, I'm the head of the table and the big dog, and I am the Universal Champion. I am the Universal Champion. Like, there's things you can do with this. And I think they're much better than I just laid out right there. But you get my point. So a throwaway match on SmackDown is not the way I would go about this. I would build this up for a pay-per-view at least. But the fact that they're doing it right now indicates to me that Finn Balor as Universal Champion is not in the cards, is probably not ever at this point, because look, Finn Balor, no disrespect to him, he's getting up there. He's I believe 41 years old now. So by the way, looks amazing, looks better. I'm 24 and looks better than me right now. So there you go. But I do think that Roman Reigns and Finn Balor could be like an amazing feud, and they could build this up for months and months, and maybe they will, and maybe we just need to be along for the ride, because God knows SmackDown has been much better at building some sort of long-term booking than Raw has. However, I don't see it, and unfortunately, I think Roman Reigns and Finn Balor is just going to be another conquest, another notch in Roman Reigns' belt on his way to his eventual conqueror, which is probably going to be Brock Lesnar. And then they're going to have that whole thing where Paul Heyman turns on Roman Reigns and aligns back with Brock Lesnar, and then Roman's going to have to turn face. And finally at WrestleMania, was it going to be 38? At WrestleMania 38, Roman's going to be in the main event, the victorious face Roman Reigns, getting cheered by everyone, conquering the streak-conquering Brock Lesnar. 8 years later, that WrestleMania 30 win over The Undertaker finally gets paid off, and Roman finally beats Brock Lesnar. That's just my thinking, though. Tell me what you guys think in the chat. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Help more people see this video. Share it if you can. Hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever new videos are released. And of course, subscribe. Also, be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you're listening on there. If you guys have any questions in the chat, like I said, too, also hit us up. Kerwin is back, and Kerwin has a question for us. Let's take a listen. You saw the match between Charlotte and Nia Jax, work or shoot or not? I think it was a shoot, but I think it was more of out of frustration on both of their parts. That being said, I think there's no legitimate heat. I don't think between these two. They're very close friends. I think in the ring, passions get the better of people sometimes. It happens to everyone. It has happened in the past. This is not like an Inoki and, who was it? Inoki and I forgot his name. There's a big dude. He's like giant something. Not haystacks, but they had this thing in Japan where Inoki just battered him because he was no selling. I don't think it was something like that. It was a lot lighter. This was just frustration, in my opinion. And I covered it all earlier on in this live stream. So if you want to check out my whole explanation about this, feel free to rewind, turn the clock back a little bit, and do that. Also, any more questions, feel free to keep hitting up the chat, and remember to subscribe. Let's move on and talk about another piece of news that was very much speculated and very much rumored about, that I think we have some sources that have actually reported this, right? I think so. Probably. It's in my script. I'll probably read it out. Oh, yes, I do. Oh my God. I am amazing. I write my own scripts and I don't even know what's in them. Anyway, let's continue and talk about Keith Lee turning heel? ? In an update on the Wrestling Observer newsletter, it reported that Keith Lee is being brought to both Raw and SmackDown for dark matches because officials are trying to change his in-ring style, give him a new character. They also want him to practice more in front of fans. It's been reported that Lee is going to be playing a role of a heel moving forward, as he has been in these dark matches. And regarding the aforementioned character change, it was reported by WrestlingNews.co that the chairman and CEO, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, has considered turning Lee heel and turning him into a, quote, monster heel for a while now, and that's what they want him to be booked as in his return. Lee has not wrestled on TV since winning against Karrion Kross on the August 2nd edition of Raw. I don't know how much that means anymore. Before that, he lost to Karrion Kross on the July 26th edition of Raw, which amazing 50-50 booking there. Amazing way to get your monster heel over. Book him to lose against the guy who's God, what is he dressing up as these days? I don't know. God bless Karrion Kross. Anyway, so Keith Lee, he made his return, and then he kind of went dormant for a while. He revealed his health concerns stemming from COVID, and now he's getting over them, and that is amazing. And we here at Real Take Sports commend him for that, and we wish him all the best, and glad he was continuing his career. So that being said, why turn Keith Lee heel, and why change his gimmick? Why change his in-ring style? I'm going to answer that last part first. Why change his in-ring style? The reason that WWE and Vince especially probably wants to change his in-ring style, it's one, because they want to go in a more heel direction, but two, because I think it kind of fits into the WWE mentality of what a big guy should be. Keith Lee is an amazing athlete. I don't care what he looks like. Oh, he doesn't look like a typical athlete. He doesn't look like he can do a shooting star press or a moonsault. He totally can, and I've seen him do it, and it's pretty fucking awesome. Keith Lee is an athletic freak. He is strong as hell. Go watch his stuff in the indies. It is amazing. And I truly do believe that they're trying to they're trying to get him away from that, because that doesn't really fit into the style of big man that WWE really likes to cater to, and the style of big man WWE likes to create. What they like are people who are big, strong, and who just destroy you in the ring and don't do dives, don't do flips, don't do all the kicks or anything that Keith Lee, he's did that in NXT, did that in the Indies before that, so they're trying to get him away from that. And that's also just no matter what you're working as, that's not a baby face. That's not a good guy type of moveset to have. The typical heel type of moveset to have is like you keep it in the ring, you avoid, you're on defense a lot, or you're on offense, you're cheating maybe a little bit, but you know what I mean. The other question, why turn Keith Lee heel? And I think it probably has something to do with the fact that WWE thinks they don't have enough monsters on Raw. They don't have enough 7-foot giants on Raw who are heel. Even though they got Veer, right? Or no, is it Veer or Shanky? I think it's Shanky. They got Shanky, who is a legit, not legit. He's like he's pretty big. He's like 6'9", 6'10". He's a big dude. Almost who's like a legit, 7'3" or whatever. So they have two heels that are big, that they can turn into monsters, but they're not doing anything with them. One of them they're burying because they have him aligned with Jinder, and they begin Jinder to look like a clown. And then the other one, they just took the tag titles off of, and I don't even know what they're doing with AJ and Amos anymore. So maybe this is them trying to fit him into that Braun Strowman type of position. And that's where they want to move. They want to make him the unstoppable force. And, maybe he'll eventually go against the immovable object one day. Who knows? But the Keith Lee gimmick change, the gimmick change, I can tell you one of the reasons. If they change his name, if they end up changing Keith Lee's name, I will 100% guarantee you it is because WWE lost that trademark battle. And they're not able to trademark the name Keith Lee, which they tried to do. WWE tried to trademark the name Keith Lee, which Keith Lee, the wrestler, has been using since before his time in WWE. So maybe that's an indication there. Maybe they just want to push the reset button on him. So I don't know. I think Keith Lee will make it work. I think he's a believable monster heel. He is a believable monster heel who has unbelievable strength, who has an unbelievable drive, who has an unbelievable way of hurting his opponents and making himself look amazing while doing so. So I think he will be fine. It is just a matter of how he's booked. If they continue this 50-50 booking between him and his opponents, then I don't think it's going to get over well. I think the best way you do it is you book him like you booked Braun Strowman early on. Not the way they ended up booking Braun Strowman, which is every big match he ever had. What did he do? He lost. Every big match Braun Strowman ever had, he lost. He was a monster in the ring. He was insane. He was taking grappling hooks and then unhooking the set onto Brock Lesnar, bringing it all down on Lesnar. He was eating cake. He was flipping over ambulances. He was amazing. And then he got to the pay-per-view. 1, 2, 3, jobbed. Don't do that with Keith Lee. Do not do that with Keith Lee. Feed him some jobbers early on. There's plenty of James Ellsworths out there. Go give him a shout out, by the way. Go give James Ellsworth a shout out. So there's plenty of those out there. Feed him to some jobbers early on, and then move it along. Work his way up. Don't put him in the title picture immediately. Work him up to a U.S. title. Then have him win that. Have him be a dominant U.S. champion. Have him go undefeated, and then challenge for the world title. That's how you make an unstoppable heel big guy. And Keith Lee is more than capable of doing that. It is just a matter of how seriously WWE is going to take this and how serious they are about making him into a believable, legitimate, unstoppable force. That's what it is. The Killer just joined us in the chat. What's up, the Killer? What's up? Guys, ask your questions in the chat. Feel free to do that. Hit that like button too. Help out the algorithm. Hit that notification bell and subscribe so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Got a big week planned here on the channel. Real Take Wrestle Talk tonight. Real Take Sports Talk tomorrow night. Going to be doing our live 2020 complete season preview, talking about every single team in the entire league. It's going to be so much fun. Also, Friday night, our AEW All Out prediction and previewing the entire card. It's a special show, Friday night, 7:30 p.m., but tomorrow night, Wednesday, 7 p.m., the entire NFL. We're going to cover it, and it is going to be emotional, as Vinny Jones would say. Shout out to Vinny Jones from Capital Carnage 1998. Again, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Also, like and ask questions in the chat. Like I said, I've reiterated that many times, but I'm just making sure you guys are hearing. Let me know what you guys, if you have any questions, I will answer them. We can talk about whatever, because I don't have dead weight dragging me down today. Don't got dead weight dragging me down today, Trevor. Saying, I love you, Trevor. Miss you. He will be back, hopefully. He will be back definitely for our Friday show. Also got a special guest joining us for our Friday show. So be sure to check that out. Let's continue this. And I think this is our last topic about WWE. And this is interesting. So we talked about Nia Jax and Charlotte potentially having backstage heat. And this pair might actually have some legitimate backstage heat after some of the comments that were levied in one direction this week. So let's move on. Again, put your comments in the chat, and we'll get to them right after this segment. But this was very, very interesting. Does Roman move the needle? Riddle doesn't think so. Bruh. This actually caught my eye. I thought this was crazy. So let's get to it. After CM Punk's debut for AEW, Roman Reigns said that the SummerSlam event was actually the real needle-moving event of that weekend. Riddle's recent comments about the Universal Champion Roman Reigns have reportedly ruffled feathers within WWE, because he actually responded to Roman Reigns calling out CM Punk as not a needle mover and saying that SummerSlam was the real needle-moving event of that weekend. And in his comments, Riddle says, and I quote, "No disrespect to Roman, he seems like a swell fella, but at the same time, it's like when people say they're a good parent. You know what? If you were a good parent, your kids would be telling you you're a good parent. When he's saying, acknowledge me, or I move the needle, no, you don't. You're related to The Rock. Shut up. Like, I'm not impressed. I could beat you up in a real fight, so shut your mouth." He continued in this amazing interview by saying, "You're not moving needles. I'm the real stallion. RK Bros is moving merch. We're moving the needle. That's it. I don't want to say too much. I'm not trying to get in trouble. Hey, hats off to him. He's amazing at what he does. I do like what he does, but at the same time, it's like, get off your high horse. You're in that spot for a reason. You're not a bro. You're a second generation. I'm first generation." So, similar to his past comments, Riddle appears to have landed himself in some trouble with WWE because of those. According to Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Riddle's push won't be affected by this. But there's some people backstage who are pretty nervous and kind of frustrated by this. And for probably a good reason. Roman Reigns kind of took a shot at AEW when they had some hype. He took a shot at CM Punk in his return. And this was kind of like WWE versus AEW. But then it seemed like, at least maybe in WWE's eyes, that Riddle undermined Roman Reigns' shot and kind of put himself in between those two, and indirectly kind of took that. I guess I don't know. He indirectly kind of maybe took that shot away from AEW, or that shot that Roman took away from AEW. I don't know, but bigger question: is this fair or foul? And what I gotta say, this is fair. This is completely fair, and I like it. I like it because what this is showing is, first of all, is this a shoot? I think it's a little bit of both. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's mostly a work, but I do think there's a little bit of truth in there with the whole, The Rock. You're like your family with The Rock, and you're second generation. And, if you were a real needle mover, you wouldn't have to tell people, I move merch. And look, RK Bros is selling merch. Riddle is over. He's getting amazing reactions everywhere he goes. So there's a lot of truth to this. However, I think a lot of this is him kind of, one, building hype for a potential rivalry with Roman Reigns down the line. And also him just taking a shot at the big guy. You got to shoot above your belt if you want to move up in the weight class. And that is what he is doing. That is what he is doing, and you can't fault Riddle for that. That's why I think these are fair comments. That's why I think that it's going to create buzz because, again, Riddle is over with WWE fans. Roman, in a different way, is over with WWE fans. And I think people are way more interested in a feud or a potential match between these two down the line than they were yesterday or before he made these comments. I think people are much more interested in seeing Riddle potentially challenge for the Universal title. But Omar, I thought Riddle's on Raw and Roman's on SmackDown. How would that even happen? I'll tell you how, people. It's because WWE is having a draft, apparently. It was supposed to be actually this coming week, but instead they didn't announce anything. So instead it's apparently been moved over into October. That rhymed. And I think that gives enough time for either Roman to finish up his feuds or Riddle to finish up his feuds with Raw. And one of them is going to move. I would say the more likely scenario is Roman Reigns ends up moving to Raw in the WWE draft later this year. And I say that because Raw is really, really hungry for some new talent. They don't have any big attraction on the show. I'm sorry. Goldberg isn't cutting it. I'm sorry. Lashley having 8 segments a show isn't cutting it. So I could see Roman Reigns being there, and then USA will end up getting their wish and getting Brock Lesnar back on Raw because that's really the show that's Lesnar's show. So I think that's what we'll see, and then that opens the door for a Riddle versus Roman match, and you could bring this in. WWE won't, but the fans know about it, and they'll be wanting this match even more because Riddle kind of took these shots at Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns might actually, benefit from it as well. So again, I think it's just fair. I think anyone who's mad at Riddle about these comments, it's a work. It's wrestling. Chill out. It's a work. It's fun. These comments are funny. They're a little, yeah. They sting, but that's the whole point. Look at any Twitter back and forth involving Becky Lynch. We don't criticize Becky Lynch for that because it's true and it's all in good wrestling fun. So it ain't that serious. It ain't that real. Although sometimes it is. I don't know. I do know. It's fine. It's going to be great. I cannot wait to see Riddle versus Roman Reigns, which WWE now officially should do. This is also great on Riddle. Riddle's getting himself out there. He's getting himself some exposure, and he's getting... Excuse me. And he's getting WWE to pay attention to him. And pay attention, maybe get some plans in down the line. But we'll see about that. If you guys haven't already, though, I want you guys to see about maybe subscribing to the podcast, hitting that notification bell, and getting notified whenever a new video is released. Oh, let me get some water real quick. You can't let the throat be too dry. Big Ticket in the chat says, let's see how much Roman Reigns, quote, moves needles if he were to come on Raw during Monday Night Football season. That is a great point. That is a great fucking point. They need something. I thought about that. So the ratings for Raw just came out for this week. The ratings for Raw came out, and Raw did like a 1.9 million rating. So they had just under 2 million viewers, and that is according to Brandon Thurston. So they had just under 1 or 2 million viewers, and that is, that's concerning, And it was here's the reason though, because Raw was a show that was built on 3 matches, and Raw didn't deliver any of them. They changed the entire card up, not because there were legitimate reasons to, but because they just decided to change it. Because goddamn, pal, we got to change it. Keep them on their toes. Got to work them. You got to work the paying customers. You got to work the paying customers about what they're expecting to see and what they're paying to see, right? Doesn't make any sense. It was a mess. Raw has been a mess. And going into Monday Night Football, they need something. Whether it's Roman and Brock, I think that's the scenario I would go for. You move Roman over to Raw. You have him and the Usos and Brock Lesnar. Move all of them, every single one of them, over to Raw, and have them, try to steady the ship on there. Last year will be fine on SmackDown. Will SmackDown lose a little bit of a luster? Yeah, because they'll be losing Roman. But Raw is going to need the most help in the next few months. They are going to get demolished. Absolutely demolished the way some of these ratings have been, especially if they don't have the attractions of Goldberg. They don't have, common sense storylines. They're going to need something to attract people to the show. And Roman and Brock are the only two people that can do it. So that's what I would do. That's what has to be done. Other than that, I'm going to say it. Hey, man. AEW probably could beat. Dynamite could beat Raw. Yeah, with football season. Totally believe that. Take that to the bank. Anyway, speaking of AEW, and one of the reasons, honestly, I think that Dynamite could end up beating Raw at least 1 week this Monday Night Football season is because of the debut of this guy, the American Dragon, Daniel Bryan son, as some call him. Anyway, let's discuss it. Let's talk about it. Let's get into it. So, after Bodyslam.net's Cassidy Haynes broke the story of Daniel Bryan, a.k.a. Bryan Danielson, signing with AEW back in July, it was expected that the former WWE World Champion would make his AEW debut at the September 22nd show at Arthur Ashe Stadium in Queens, New York. However, it looks like some of these things have changed, and it looks like now that, according to Bodyslam, a couple of days ago, Bryan Danielson's AEW debut was moved over from AEW Dynamite Grand Slam to All Out this weekend in Chicago at the Now Arena. The reasons for this have to do with the growing concerns of the current state of COVID in the state of New York, as the uncertain situation has brought into question what an Arthur Ashe show in late September could look like given potential restrictions that could be put in place. Word is that AEW management do not want to be in a situation where they debut Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson in front of no fans or even in front of a small audience at Daly's place. This past Wednesday at AEW Dynamite, CM Punk reacted to a yes chant by the crowd, telling the fans that they probably need to be a little patient with them. So he's kind of teasing, and he's been teasing some future debuts. Some are more likely than others. But that was the first real confirmation from anyone in AEW, or first indication, rather, that Daniel Bryan or Danielson had signed with the company. We know that it's pretty much a lock that Bryan is signing with AEW. There have been multiple credible sources, such as Fightful, such as Bodyslam, such as the Wrestling Observer newsletter, that have basically confirmed this. And the question is it the correct decision by AEW, given the situation, to debut Daniel Bryan at All Out instead of the September 22nd Grand Slam show? And if you ask me, I think so. I think this is a smart decision, because one thing we learned during the pandemic and one thing we learned in 2020 was nothing's guaranteed, and that you should not take these things for granted. You should not take crowds for granted, especially in pro wrestling. We saw what pro wrestling was like with no fans in the stands. We saw what it was like with some little fans in the stands, with just a few people surrounding the ring. It was different. And now we're seeing fans back, and it is way more exciting of a product than it ever was. It's way more hot. And I'm talking about WWE and AEW. Ratings are up. Excitement for wrestling in general is up. The feel of the shows is so different, and so much energy, and even more so than the Thunderdome provided or Daly's place. It is different. So with the September 22nd show, which was supposed to be AEW's biggest show of the year, potentially, we don't know what it's going to be like, because the Delta strain is fast growing. It is fast transmitting amongst people, and we don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know what restrictions are going to be like. So if you're AEW and you're in a situation where you have this guy, you've had him for a month, and you are just waiting for the right time to debut him, right now, in the midst of this pandemic, there's not going to be a right time. And one thing you don't want to be is you don't want to be caught trying to debut him at the wrong time. So we're a few days out from Chicago, All Out. There's going to be no restrictions put in Illinois right now. At least that's the indication. I don't think it, and that's not going to change until Sunday. And it is going to be your big show. The main event is a little meh. I'm not going to lie to you. Christian Cage versus Kenny Omega. Love these two. Love these two wrestling for a championship. Do I like these two wrestling in the main event of All Out in Chicago as the main draw? Not really. I'm not going to lie to you. And I love these two, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm very nice about it. I like the product. But CM Punk's the real draw. But if you want to send fans home excited and happy, another way to add to this AEW All Out card, at the end, just have Bryan come out, confront Kenny Omega. Don't say a word. Confront Kenny Omega and let him know that Bryan Danielson, the American Dragon, has arrived in All Elite Wrestling. And that's what you do. And I think they are right to have these concerns, and just do it. Just do it. Because look, worst case scenario, you can build up. AEW does an amazing job at building up dynamites, these big special dynamites. If nothing changes, if they are able to do this or Grand Slam show, amazing. Make that Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson's first ever match. Make that show, have him in ring his first ever AEW match at Grand Slam. It is going to draw people. Have CM Punk wrestle on that show. It is going to draw people. Have Adam Page beat Kenny Omega for the AEW title. It is going to draw people. AEW knows that they can build up a show, a dynamite like that. They can build up a special dynamite. They can do it. What they don't know is, are they going to be able to wait this long to debut one of the most beloved superstars, one of the most beloved wrestlers in the history of the entire industry? Don't take that chance. Debut him at All Out. Make that an even bigger show. Send the customers home happy. Don't have him sent home on a finish that we all know is coming. We all know Kenny Omega is gonna beat Christian Cage by hook or by crook. It's gonna happen. So make it interesting, and people will be satisfied. Your product will be hot, and people will be talking. And then Grand Slam could be even a bigger show. It makes sense, doesn't it? At least to me, it does. And you could set up things with him and Omega. You could set up things with Bryan and Omega. You could set up things with Bryan and CM Punk. Have CM Punk turn heel and just destroy Daniel Bryan in the middle of the ring. Attack his neck. Give him a GTS. Put him in the Anaconda Vice, by the way. I missed that move. The Anaconda Vice, deadly move. You could do so much with Bryan. And I think Bryan Danielson, if you let him be the American Dragon, I think he's actually going to work a much better system. He's going to work a much better style, rather, than he did in WWE. Because you're going to be able to, in WWE, he worked actually a more indie style than he did on the main or on the indies. On the indies, he was a wrestler. He was methodical. He was putting you in these holds, and he was wrenching back at every fiber, every muscle. And it was amazing. He was very technical. He's the best technical wrestler, in my opinion, of all time. So he didn't get to do a lot of that, and a lot of people didn't see that in WWE. Let him do that in AEW, and you will put years back on his career, because he won't be taking dives and doing moonsaults and doing all the crazy shit that WWE and landing on his neck every week. Have all that shit that WWE were making him do. And Dynamite and AEW, it's crazy. It is so crazy. It is so crazy. I just have to get this out. 1/3 of the main event, of WrestleMania could be appearing at the main event of All Out. That is amazing. That is insane. We truly live in an exciting, bizarre time in wrestling, and I fucking love it. It is so great. And you know what else is great? Bryan Danielson getting back in a ring. I am so excited. Look, yes. Bryan Danielson back in the ring. Let me know what you guys think, though, about Bryan Danielson making his return in the main event of All Out. Again, 1/3 of the main event of WrestleMania making his return at AEW All Out, potentially in the main event to confront Kenny Omega. Let me know what you guys think. Ask questions about wrestling. Ask questions about whatever in the chat. Hit me up. I've got plenty of time, and let's move on now and talk about our last official segment of today, and that is good old JR. So let's get into it as I change my graphics and waste time. And if you guys want to kill some time, take 2 seconds and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. I'm sorry you guys had to hear that. That was not professional of me at all, but it's okay. Anyway, let's move on and talk about good old JR and talk about him potentially switching over into a non-full-time announcer. Let's talk about it. AEW's Tony Khan and Jim Ross have a two-take Omar. AEW and three-take me. AEW's Tony Khan and Jim Ross have apparently shot down rumors that good old JR will be stepping away from the All Elite Wrestling commentary desk. Last week, we heard rumblings that Jim Ross was being transitioned out of the full-time commentary role on AEW. This week, when asked about it, Jim Ross responded to the news on Twitter by saying, "It's news to me," and Tony Khan also seemed to shoot down these rumors with the Wrestling Observer, stating that Tony Khan said that reports that he is looking to remove JR as the announcer are inaccurate, and he said he's never said that, and he's also told Ross that he has never said that. So that seems to be the case. The veteran announcer signed a 3-year deal with AEW in April, with initial reports of this change with reports saying that a new contract is on the horizon and that his future role may look different. But Tony Khan and Jim Ross both said no, he's not going away from Dynamite. He's not going away from full-time announcing duties. And overall, what do we make of this news? I think it's honestly a whole lot of nothing. And I'm not saying that the reports are wrong. I just think that, I think people might be taking them a little too literally, because JR might be transitioning out of a full-time role, and that transition could take up to a year or 2 years. Who knows? You prepare for the future. Even JR will tell you. JR tells people all the time. He's like, I'm no spring chicken. Been doing this a long time. He wants to keep doing it. He's got the fire to keep doing it. He's got the desire to keep doing it. He does a podcast every week. The dude loves to talk. And look, I like him on AEW commentary. I know he messes up. It's okay. It happens. Happens to the best of them. Happens to the worst of them. He messes up. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. He's good old JR. And the question is, should he be transitioned out? And my opinion is, I don't think you transition JR out unless you have his replacement already. And let's be honest, who is that going to be that's currently with AEW? Excalibur is good in his role, which is as the color guy, to get over talent, as the analyst, the former wrestler who knows the ins and outs of wrestling and who knows these people the best. Tony Schiavone, he has a different role. He's not like just specifically a play-by-play guy. He's also more of an analyst. He's kind of just basically there to mark out and marvel at these new talents that AEW has and be amazed by them and bring that history as well. And that's a similar role with JR, as well as the play-by-play duties that he already provides. So I think they're fine. I think you don't transition JR out unless you have the other person that you're going to bring in. And if you don't take the most credible announcer you have. No offense to either of those guys. I think that's just a testament to JR. JR is the most credible announcer in pro wrestling, period. He's a big reason that AEW had the credibility early on that it did, because you got to hear Jim Ross calling these guys matches. And just by that, I'm not even capping, just by that, a lot of these wrestlers, both male and female, got way more over than they would have otherwise. That is truth. And that is a testament to this man and the job that he's done in the past and he's doing. JR does a great job. Does he sound flat sometimes? Yes, sometimes he does. And not everyone has a great week every week. But recently, I think he's been on a tear. He's been tearing it up, especially since fans came back. JR has been doing a great job since they've been back on the road. And unless you have the guy, unless Mauro Ranallo has signed a contract with All Elite Wrestling, I don't think you take JR out full time. You keep him on full time as long as he wants to. When you find that person, and if it is Mauro, I think Mauro Ranallo would be perfect. I know he probably doesn't want to do it weekly, but maybe they can figure out something. Maybe he only does Dynamite or he only does Rampage, possibly. Either way, I think that could be something that could be figured out between the two parties. But I don't think you take JR out of that role. I don't think he wants to be out of that role. I don't think Tony Khan wants him to be out of that role because let's be honest. JR calling matches is just way more credible than anyone else. And that is no offense to Tony Schiavone or Excalibur, who are amazing. It is just a testament to the person that Jim Ross is and what he's done throughout his career. So this is my take on it. Let me know what you guys think in the chat. I think that's all I have for official topics today. I think I basically covered everything. I was able to kill an hour. That is amazing. I am amazing. Put me over. How can I put myself over anymore? I don't know. But let's get to the fan talk question. Let's get to the fan talk aspect of this show. Guys, hit me up with questions in the chat, on Twitter, wherever. Just hit me up with questions. Do it in the chat. You're watching on one place. Do it in the fucking chat. Don't be an asshole. Hit me up on Twitter. Hit me up with questions in the chat and let me know what you guys are thinking. What's on your mind? What do you want to hear me talk about? What do you want to hear us probably cover? Maybe about AEW. Maybe about whatever. Let me know. Let me know. Let's see. We got one in the chat here. Big Ticket says, unless they're bringing in Mauro Ranallo to yell, Mamma Mia on Dynamite, keep giving me good old JR. Damn right, keep giving me good old JR. Keep giving me good old JR. I don't care if I sound like a mark. Keep giving me good old JR. There's no one. Who are you going to bring in that's going to do the job? Matt fucking Stryker? Don't tell me Matt Stryker's going to come in and replace Jim Ross. No. You go from all the credibility to zero credibility? Fuck that. No. Who's going to come in? Kevin Kelly? Love Kevin Kelly, by the way. Did an amazing job with New Japan. Amazing job with Ring of Honor. He's not JR. For me, there's not many people. Maybe the Golden Boy if you bring him in. But again, maybe the Golden Boy. I could see the Golden Boy. I forgot his... I gotta get his name. I'm gonna have him on the show one day. I'll invite him on the show because I need to remember his name though. But no, the Golden Boy was amazing. Go back and watch All Out 2019. By the way, it's on AEW's YouTube channel for free. Go check that out. All of All Out 2019. Go watch All Out 2019. Tell me that guy wasn't amazing at commentary. And I was kind of upset when he wasn't on the Dynamite team, but he has other things to do. But if he wants to do it weekly, I think you could transition JR out for him. I think Mauro Ranallo is like the big one. And again, it's all up to if Mauro wants to do it and if he's available and what's up, because we know he has he has legitimate mental health struggles and he has a past with wrestling that hasn't treated him well. So there's, and the schedule also is very taxing on one's mental health. So there's other things to factor into that. Big Ticket in the chat asks, who else besides Bryan Danielson debuts this week? Oh, well, I have one. I have one. Her name is Ruby Soho. Yes, it's Ruby Soho. Her namesake is of that Rancid song, Ruby Soho, aka Ruby Riott. She released this amazing video. Go check it out on her Twitter, Ruby Soho. I think it's at Real Ruby Soho. Go check it out there. And she got Rancid to give her the rights for her theme, and they're huge fans of Ruby Soho, of Ruby Riott, and she's a free agent. There is an open slot, the Joker slot in the AEW Casino Battle Royale this weekend that will give a number one contender shot at Britt Baker in the near future. So I think she would be perfect. I think she's amazing. I think she'd get a huge reaction. And I think that match is going to be on the what's that called? The pre-show, the buy-in. the AEW buy-in. So it's gonna get people talking, gonna get people watching. I'm definitely gonna be watching it. So yeah, I think so. I think yeah. Ruby Soho is gonna debut. If she does, I hope she wins. She's my pick. She better win. But yeah, that's what I think. Any other questions you guys got? Again, if you guys haven't already, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. And be sure to check out Real Take Sports Talk tomorrow night, where we talk about our entire preview, for the upcoming 2020 NFL, or 2021 rather, NFL season. Hit that like button, all that jazz. I already did that. I'm off my game today, but it's okay. Getting through. Already got through an hour. And then we got the all-out preview on Friday Night Michael. So yeah, I think that's it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this show. Sorry about the way things turned out, but I'm here. I'm always going to be here, and I will be here tomorrow live right here, 7 p.m. tomorrow night. Real Take Sports Talk number 53, our live NFL preview edition, talking about every single team. Doesn't matter what your team is, doesn't matter what the record is or is going to be. We will talk about them, break down each conference, each division, and it's going to be fun. Also going to be talking about all that news about that fake high school that pwned ESPN and is now in some huge trouble. We'll be talking about that and much, much more on Real Take Sports Talk tomorrow night. So be sure to check us out. Hit us up. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, be sure to give us a follow? A follow. Follow, subscribe, whatever it is. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, also be sure to nicely give us a 5-star rating. I've been Q for Real Take Sports, and I will see you tomorrow night.